Dear colleagues, dear friends, welcome to the lecture by Professor Jure Zovko. At first, I take the honor to give a short introduction to Professor Jure Zovko. This is Professor Jure Zovko. He will deliver two invited online lectures at Wuhan University. The first lecture held on last Friday night, judgment as part of the third. Tonight, I will deliver his second lecture, Ethics for the Era of Globalization. A short introduction to Professor Jure Zovko. Professor Jure Zovko studied German philosophy and the philosophy of religion at the universities of Sarajevo and Freiburg, Germany, where at Freiburg he completed his master's degree in 1985 and his doctor PhD in 1989. From 1993 to 2000, he was Deputy Minister for Science and Technology of the Republic of Croatia. As some scholar at the Center for Hellenic Studies, Washington, D.C., America, 1999. Professor for Ontology at the Faculty of Philosophy of the University of Zadar since 2000. A guest professor in Vienna means Tübingen, Münster, and Sarajevo. An appointed guest professor at Shanxi Normal University, Chen, from 2019 to 2022. He is the editor-in-chief of newly published Philosophical Journal, Distincture, a co-editor of the International Philosophical Journals, Stadia Humanistica, Stadia Philosophica, Lebensia, something else. Since 2008, he was elected as one titular member of International Institute of Philosophy, IIP, 国际哲学院. Since 2010, he was elected as one titular member of International Academy of Philosophy of Science, 国际科学哲学院. Since 2010, he is the Vice President of International Hegel Society. Since 2018, he was the Vice President of International Institute of Philosophy. And a member of steering committee of Facebook, International Federation of Societies of Philosophy, 国际哲学联合会。The World Congress was organized by FISP, a member of Philosophers Association, many academic societies, especially last year, he was elected as the president of the International Academy of Philosophy of Science. At the same year, he was elected the president of International Institute of Philosophy. That means he, at the same time, he both is the president of IIP and the president of AIPS. Very unusual. Can interpret, can explain something significant. His areas of specialization, hermeneutics, ancient Greek philosophy, German idealism, philosophy of science. He won 5 research projects funded by Croatian government. He also won 2 international research projects. He won quite many awards and fellowships, especially the first 2 awards issued by the president of his country in 1997 and 1998. He had published 11 books. Take one example. The first one, German book. I can't read it. This book was reviewed in 17 journals, quite influential. He had also edited 20 books, published almost 100 papers in different journals or anthologies, published almost 20 reviews, book reviews. So he's quite powerful and influential in the international circle of philosophy. Yes, I also give a short introduction to my young colleague, Professor Liu Xiaofei. He will be the interlocutor of Professor Jure Zovko tonight. Liu Xiaofei received his PhD in philosophy from the University of Missouri. He works in moral philosophy and metaphysics with special interests in moral responsibility and free will, discrimination, and experimental ethics. He is currently a professor of philosophy at Wuhan University. Previously, He taught at the philosophy department of Xiamen University. He had published a book on moral responsibility, literally responsibility and normativity, a theory of moral responsibility. The commercial press, 2019 years, and numerous articles in English on Jure's subject mind, philosophical studies, philosophical psychology, international Jure for philosophy of religion, and Deontological. Okay? Now, welcome Professor Jure Zovko gave his second lecture, Ethics for the Era of Globalization. He talks more than 1 hour, and then Professor Liu Xiaofei will give his short comments and questions about 15 minutes. The audience, please write down your questions in chat box. The staff at 学士志 will forward your questions to me and to Professor Jure Zovko. Then he will give his short replies. Welcome, Professor Jure Zovko. Gave his lectures. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, my friend Chen, for great introduction. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes, I can see.
I would congratulate University of Wuhan at this amazing anniversary, 100 years of existence. We all have responsibility for our university. We teach at the university. We have cooperation with students and colleagues. And our obligation is to help young people to nurture, to become a part of our academic community, and that's some ethical obligation. I will continue my last lecture because I will talk now almost on judgment in ethics. So, because I'm working on one book on judgment, I think that's most important. What we have in philosophy is judgment. I learned that from Kant. We have now conferences in Vienna on Kant's critique on judgment. And that's a great book because Kant tried to show we have always the same problem. We have theory, normativities, we have the laws, and we have praxis, concrete case, our reality, and the question how to apply the laws, how to apply the ethical normativity or the laws of science in the concrete case. It's question of judgment or ability to judge. And my philosophical question is how to improve our ability of judge, and of course to consider which option of ethic should we have in the era of globalization. And that should be here. Okay. In my paper, I would like to explore the question of what forms of ethics might be helpful to us in the age of globalization. The rapid development of scientific research and the domination of the technological science has unfortunately led our society as whole into such an extreme situation in which human beings cannot come to terms with the difficult issues we face without taking resource to basic ethical norms. Oops. Human beings, I need to move this, I don't know how. That's good, yeah. Human beings today live under the constant threat of an ecological world catastrophe that could result in inhabitability of Earth and the extinction of humanity. We are still far from overseeing all the possible and shocking consequences of genetic engineering of living beings, including human beings. The accountability for human action under condition of the modern scientific and technological development in the digital society by no means dispense with normative ethical justification. Without these basic ethical norms, the human individual would entirely lose their orientation in the modern society and have no starting point for cultivating their ethical attitudes and faculty of judgment. This should be my conclusion regarding the foundation of ethics in the era of globalization. We need to improve our ability to judge, our ability for judging, analyzing in the ethical field and the ethical issues. We have three substantial models of ethics in the European tradition, and the question remains which of these concepts best fits the challenges of the present time. We distinguish first virtue ethics, utilitarianism or consequentialistic ethics, and third, deontological ethics or Kant morality of human dignity. Virtue ethics began with Socrates, the founder of European morality. As we saw last time, Socrates asked about the forms of good life. Greek word for good life was arete. We translate with virtue, but we lose the original meaning of the word. The question about good life, how to achieve good life, was biotheon, remains in the central stage of Socratic discussion. For Socrates, the unexamined life is not worth living. Anexetatos bios bioton anthropo, for the man, for the human being. The fundamental characteristic of ancient ethics, Greek ethics, is that the human being asks for the perfect form of life, arete. Arete is not only a value, an ethical norm, but a form of moral realism. If you have really friend became always really friend. That's a question of moral reality, moral realism. Greek words for virtue is arete. It means the perfect form of living. Arete is derived from agathon. The good, the superlative of agathon is aristos, the best. For the Greek, normal Greek of the classical period, it is pointless to ask whether we should be moral, Aristotle, because everyone wants to be the best. This form of ethics explores the possibility of individual happiness, eudaimonia, and is therefore not suitable to offer a philosophical answer to the challenges and dangers of contemporary society. The second model of morality, utilitarian conception of morality, asks for the best consequences to be followed or the greatest benefits to all involved. The famous definition of Jeremy Bentham, the greatest happiness of the great number of people. The most important representatives of utilitarianism, which develops from a hedonistic worldview to the so-called utilitarianism of rules, are John Stuart Mill, Henry Sidgwick, Richard Marion Hare, and Richard Brand. The classic utilitarian conception of morality starts from the principle that it is necessary to realize the maximum benefit, utility, of the majority of members of society. Jeremy Bentham, one of the founders of utilitarianism, insisted on the economic stability of society, and as social values, he prioritized benefits, advantage, pleasure, good, and happiness. Bentham's famous utilitarian formulation, the greatest happiness of the greatest number of people, became the subject of intense criticism in the late transformation of utilitarianism. The most famous objection against hedonistic utilitarianism was directed by John Stuart Mill, that namely the question of happiness and satisfaction could be considered from different positions. It is under quantitative and qualitative aspect, whereby Mill gave priority to spiritual pleasures in relation to physical happiness. It is also an important matter of judgment regarding the valuation of pleasures and enjoyments. In this context, Mill's statement that it is better to be dissatisfied Socrates than satisfied fool is well known. Karl Marx, the founder of free socialism, I hope it's allowed to quote Marx in China, defined utilitarianism as exploitation of man by man, l'exploitation de l'homme par l'homme. In his presentation, in his book Deutsche Ideologie, his famous early paper, Paris manuscripts. Following Marx, we could discuss the imperialist exploitation of the countries of the so-called third world. It is the poor and undeveloped country. Imperialism was, as Lenin beautifully said, the highest stage of capitalism. Hans Tugendhat, the influential German philosopher, thinks that utilitarian ethics is at the service of capitalist market economy, where any interference of the state and redistribution of goods remains forbidden. The question of distributive justice, according to which those who earn more should also pay more tax, does not come into question in utilitarianism. In my opinion, utilitarianism, not even its best form of consequentialism, cannot be used as an ethical model to address problems of current scientific development and to solve burning questions of biotechnological science. Value and virtue ethics are primarily concerned with the individual questions of how to achieve good and happy life. Therefore, they are not suitable for exploring the global ethics issue in our living world. Moral values are only relevant in the respective system and context. Good and bad are only relevant in the different systems. Contextual and practice related. Contextual and practice related. The advocates of moral relativism and moral pluralism claim that moral progress is not possible because there are no objective moral values, only a pluralism of views which they try to justify with the principle of democracy. Of course, I am against this form of ethics. We must present coherent argument against moral relativism and show that grounding morality is possible, that moral norms are binding and universal, and that one can apply them in practice. In my presentation, I will refer that the main principle of deontological morality, especially as elaborated by Immanuel Kant, in order to show that this morality is suitable for examining the problems of the crisis situation in the present highly developed society on a global scale. Wilfrid Sellers has claimed that in the dimension of describing and explaining the world, science is the measure of all things, from his books, Experience, Empirism, and the Philosophy of Mind, 56. But in biotechnological research, we cannot manage without ethical reflection, which should be an integral part of scientific research program and project. For a long time, the view that science is value-free was accepted in the philosophy of science. Over time, three criteria of scientific research have become established: impartiality, neutrality, and autonomy. That's from book Is Science Value-Free? Or Values and Scientific Understanding. Legacy. German sociologist Max Weber emphasized that natural science and mathematics cannot prescribe the method or argumentation of humanities and social sciences, especially because of their special analysis of social practice. Max Weber argues that scientific researcher has the primary task of explaining empirical fact and should refrain from judging ethical issues. In his famous essay, The Objectivity of Knowledge in Social Science and Social Policy, Weber maintains he is of the opinion that it can never be a task of science of empirical experience to determine binding norms and ideals from which practical prescriptions may then be deduced. Weber claims that experimental science is value-free in its structure. As such, cannot give criteria for moral judgment. This Weber's view has unfortunately led to the abrupt separation of natural science and the humanities in academic life. The scientists kept the value-free determination of their sciences, of their research programs. The representative of humanities wanted to keep their autonomy from the natural and technical sciences. The neutrality of science with regard to values is justifiable insofar as scientific theories contain no value judgments among their logical inference. The view that scientific researchers fail can be value-free, must, however, be labeled as very dangerous because it ignores the potential for threats to our environment and the fabric of society posed by novel and unexpected result of the uncontrolled implementation for technological innovation. To elevate this threat, I believe it is necessary to implement some form of ethics, reflective judgments, as understood by Kant to study the development of technosciences. The German-American political philosopher Eric Voegelin has interpreted the positivist tradition of the French Enlightenment's materialists, Marx and Darwin, a symptom of de-divinization, alienation, and dehumanization, so that in Germany, direct, if Krupp, part led from the monism of Haeckel or Oswald to the national socialism of Hitler, Nazi regime. Indeed, the history of 20th century should not be interpreted merely as confrontation between democracy and totalitarianism, but also between humanism and scientism. Dilthey's answer to the positivism need should be explained. Scientific life, we understand, has had fatal impact. History of separation of science and humanity. Dilthey is fond of hermeneutics, and hermeneutics became very influential philosophy movement in Europe, Heidegger, Sartre, Gadamer. Dilthey's distinction between explanation, clear, and understanding, verstehen, led to the radical bias that all human experience divide naturally into two parts. First, explanation of the natural world in which objective necessity ruled, and second, understanding in which the inner experience of life is hermeneutics dominated and humanities. British scientist and novelist Charles Percy Snow has radicalized this segregation by claiming that there are two cultures, natural science and humanity, that are totally separated from one another, like two separated galaxies. Concerning the two different cultures, Charles Percy Snow argues, I quote, "No, I believe the intellectual life as a whole for Western society is increasingly being split into two polar groups. At one pole, we have the literary intellectuals who, incidentally, while no one was looking to referring to themselves as intellectual, as though three were no other. And other scientists, and as most representative physical scientists. Between the two, a gulf of mutual incomprehensions, sometimes hostility and dislike, but most a lack of understanding. They have curious, distorted image of each other. Their attitudes are so different that even on the level of emotions, they cannot find much common ground." End of quote. Jasper Snow actually claims that there is no communication between natural science and humanity. According to Snow, scientists understand more of culture than representative of liberal arts from nature. When it's come to morality, Snow thinks that scientists represent a clearer and more decisive ethical position than members of liberal arts. The blame for totalitarian excesses of modernity is is essentially attributed, according to Snow, to literary intellectuals. Snow reports shocking examples of poets sympathizing with fascism and Nazi regime. William Butler, Jure, Ezra Pound, Wyndham Lewis. Snow asked, didn't the influence of all they represent bring to Auschwitz and much near? Unfortunately, Jasper Snow is ignoring the fact that the vast majority of physicists during the Cold War were in the service of imperialistic ideology. The Western democratic states, the physicists were actively involved in management policy. Scientists, not pacifists, have been given the task of securing peace by setting up the most modern weapons. It's paraphrasing of Paul Aram. The rapid development of biotechnological science over the last 20 years has confronted us with the fact that scientific research is intimately tied to the ethical questions. The future and destiny of human species may be endangered by biotechnological research. The idea to engineer the human genome for the purpose of improving or enhancing human being, Homo sapiens, is like the crossing of Rubicon. In the Roman history, Caesar crossing the Rubicon, this metaphor crossing of Rubicon signifies in Roman history the abolition of republic and Roman democracy and the introduction of dictatorship. Analogiously, the enhancement of human beings could be consequence of the abolition of human species in its present form with incalculable consequences. With these steps, the epoch of transhumanism begins. We are not yet aware of all consequences that will follow from this paradigm shift from the humanism to transhumanism. It should be the most dangerous paradigm shift in our history. I've used, of course, this paradigm shift from Thomas Kuhn, from philosophy, from his Revolution of Scientific History of Scientific Revolution. At the time of crisis, there are no alternative to morality based on respect for human dignity. I see the task of the ethical reflection in the context of modern biotechnological research, as well as with regard to other groundbreaking areas of scientific research, as consisting in the preservation of human dignity. Morality and cultivation of moral judgment provide the basics for interpretation of what is to be human and protects us from the worldview built and shown destructive of what is most valued in its human spirit. Transhumanism could prove to be the great danger of modern and future society. I will quote now the famous sentence of German poet Friedrich Hölderlin, but first dangers also arouse the saving power. The primary task of bioethical judgment and philosophical reflection in the field of ethics is to consider how to contribute to this process of preserving our life work. Science and current scientific research could lead humankind into an irreversible situation where it's where it is no longer possible to return to the status ante quo, to the status before. In this light, we can no longer insist on the separation of biomedical science and the human science, because both analyze and interpret human beings. The definition of human beings as self-interpreting animals, this definition from Charles Taylor, requires ethical transformation of scientific research and implementation. In his critique of philosophical positivism based on the myth of the given, the highly influential American philosopher John McDowell claims, with references to Aristotle and Hegel, that humans not only have the capacity to interpret it of natural world, but also capable for acting rationally and ethically, of constituting moral life. It is moral pluralism. Phronesis, the Greek word for practical wisdom, is the central determining concept in Aristotelian ethics, in his practical philosophy, ethics and politics. We need to use practical wisdom to solve our problem. The phenomenon of competition, Agon, was central feature in the Greek culture from Homer to Plato, and fundamental part of their daily life, how to improve the morality. Jacob Burckhardt, historian of culture, claimed the aim of the talented Greek, since Homer was always to be the first and outshine the rest, and from the same early period to wish for fame after death was also often expressed. Human health is one of the most important segments of good and happy life. Socrates, founder of European secular morality, compares the ethical activity of the actor known as moral intellectualism with the activity of physicians, who always act by striving for practical knowledge, striving for good diagnosis. Health is the term Plato used most often when arguing about effects of virtue on the soul of individuals. For example, in the Republic, it is explained how pleonexia harms the soul, and as such, it has been compared with disease, which destroys our organism, while righteousness of the souls is compared to the health which restores natural conditions. The competition manifested itself in Burckhardt's opinion not only in Olympic Games, but also in cultural life, theater, poetry, art, and from 5th century in philosophy as well. The model of kalokagatia, an ideal of gentlemanly personal conduct. Kalokagatia means to be good and beautiful regarding your behavior, became the ideal of agonal way of competition, of life, thanks to philosophy, especially Socrates. According to Aristotle, in order to achieve an arete, virtue in life, we need practical wisdom. Our life consists of choice for hybridis and search for the best option. For this, an experience of life is necessary. It's paradoxical of our zeitgeist, of our society, that instead of moral improvement of human being, we are confronted with the questions of wishes of the biological improvement of man, of human being. Advocates of biological engineering argue that ethics and consideration of moral principles are in fact major obstacle to free scientific research. Modern technology and genetics engineering ignore the normative principle that aims to preserve and protect human dignity. At the same time, ethicists have been accused of dubious sanctification of human nature, which in the opinion of genetic research expertise threatens freedom of research. You see which form of transformation we instead the look of the best form of moral life, we look of improve of our abilities, biological ability. That I, for example, can more drink, I need. We are now in the situation where we need to ask ourselves whether shopping in the genetic supermarket truly represents progress in the consciousness of freedom, paraphrase of Hegel, or poses perhaps the great dangers to humanity in the history of the human spirit by confronting us with the situation in which the future existence of humanity as we know is at risk. In their constitutions, the best European countries have given human beings a special status among the living beings, as a barrier of dignity needing to be protected and promoted by principles, laws, and regulations. Thereby, humans have been legally distinguished from their evolutionary procedures from the animals. The quest for perfection, promoted by sympathizers of enhancement, ostensibly aims at the progress and improvement of humanity and human ability. Representatives of transhumanism, for example, Nick Bostrom, Julian Savulescu, Ingmar Parsons, Thomas Douglas, consider it a moral obligation of scientists is to carry out scientific research in the field of genetic engineering in order to further the process of evolution, because human beings, as they are, obviously not perfect. Human beings have not always existed. They came into existence as a result of natural selection. The most prominent transhumanist claim that the purpose of science and technology is to improve human capacities, especially intelligence, memory, ability to concentrate, and prolonging the period of healthy life. Enormous advances in medical technology, such as, for example, stem cell therapy, have resulted in the same deadly diseases became treatable. Successes like these led some scientists to wonder why we should limit ourselves to the treatment of the disease. Why not continue to improve the countless aspects of human functioning? In light of the contemporary developments in the field of genetics, and may justifiably ask whether it is necessary to sacrifice scientific research in order to preserve the human morality. The dangers that we may reach a point of no return in the process of amending the genetic makeup of human beings appear to be imminent, and reaching that point could result in catastrophe of yet unknown proportion. For these reasons, one of primary tasks and perhaps the ultimate aim of philosophical critique as form of cultivation of our humanity is to protect what is human with all its abilities and possibilities, so that human beings may continue to exist as individual individuals and in the community and in the states, in the academic life at the university. The problem of the proper application of principles and the proper judgment is a crucial issue in medicine, law, and biotechnological research. False diagnoses and false assumptions arise in medicines not only and not primarily because of failures of science, but because proper treatment depends on the physician's power of judgment. The physician's expertise obviously does not depend on his training to purely scientific research alone, but also on his ability to apply his general knowledge to concrete life situation, to concrete life world. In any case, it is not possible to set aside the question of humanism in the art of healing, because it is primarily about life itself, which is entrusted to the physician's ability. In his writing, What is Enlightenment? Immanuel Kant concludes his argument that is often forgotten that man is more than machine, so he must be treated accordingly to his dignity. Kant's conclusion to the question, what is enlightenment, is a critic of the book L'Homme Machine, written by medical doctor Xiaofei Lamatrie, because the author advocated the materialistic view of man, in which, in Kant's view, the concept of human dignity is missing. What is enlightenment? Kant's answer. In the time of crisis, there are no alternative to morality based on the respect for human dignity. I see the task of the ethical reflection in the context of modern biotechnological research, as well with regard to other groundbreaking areas of scientific research, as consisting in the preservation of human dignity. Morality and cultivation of moral judgment provide the basics for interpretation of what is human, protect us of the worldview destructive at world is most valued in the human spirit. Kant's moral concept is based on the model of human dignity, which implies the equality of all citizens. This implies not only equality of all citizens before the law, but also with regard to medical healing, health, and treatment. Kant's answer is that the highest moral principle is the so-called categorical imperative. Categorical imperative: act as the maximum of your actions were to become by your will as universal law of nature. Grundlegung der Metaphysik, foundation of moral. Since the formulation of the categorical imperative addressed relation between persons, it directly articulated the question of the dignity of human being, who is homo noumenon, who as homo noumenon belongs to the realm of purpose, in which we have an alternative, prize on alternative dignity. In the terms of purpose, Kant makes a crucial distinction between that what has a price, that is, things and animals. Things and animals have a price, and what has the dignity of human being, man is rational person, rational being. What has a price can be replaced by something else as its equivalent. What, on the other hand, is right above all prizes and therefore admit of no equivalent has a dignity. It's human person. One of most common objections to Kant ethics is that it's empty formalism, culminating in 5 variations of categorical imperative. Vernon Williams criticized Kant for completely missing the role of emotion in constituting morals, which is one of the reasons for his formalism. Alan Wood, one of the best-known translators of Kant's philosophy into English, confronts us with the main problem of Kant ethics. Like what? Kant high-minded talk about duty and personality is an empty formalism that can easily become a pretext for any sort of tyranny and manipulation. Kant's admiration for goodwill is an unhealthy individualism focusing on the agent's inner intentions rather than their social setting. Those who see Kant this way regarded it is entirely suitable to the inhumanities of his ethical doctrine that he located his goodwill entirely outside nature in an unknowable nominal world. But it's, for my opinion, wrong interpretation. Of course, I analyze all objections against Kant. Some example of the scandalous references to Kant, the testimony of Nazi criminal Adolf Eichmann is often cited, who testified at the Jerusalem trial in 1961 that he had, Eichmann say, followed Kant's moral precepts all his life and acted according to Kant's concept of duty. And Bericht von Hannah Arendt report. Judge, Ravich, and all present were astounded when Eichmann accurately quoted Kant's definition of the categorical imperative. But it is important to know in his work on the common saying that may be true in theory, but does not apply in the practice, Kant responds personally to all objections against categorical imperative, and it was first objection of Christian Garber that his morality was merely formalistic. Garber was eminent translator of ethics of Stoic orientation, Stoic philosophy, moral, claimed that Kant's moral philosophy based on abstract principle formal rules and duties was useless in practical life. In his response to the objections of Graves, Kant argues that the task of judgment is to combine theory and practice, the possibility of applying ethical universal norm to a particular life situation. In addition, there must be an act of judgment by means of which one distinguishes whether the rules refers to the concrete case or not. And just now in Vienna, at the Kant Congress of Critical Judgment, we discussed these ethical dimension, the relevance of judgment, what Kant calls reflective judgment, for applying the ethical norm, the laws in the concrete European laws, because my country, Croatia, is now country of European Union. We in European Union have all common laws, but we discuss always how to apply the laws in concrete case, concrete situation. The same is with morality. Kant just suggested that the entire critical practical reason should be interpreted from the perspective of third critic, critical judgment. It is with regard to the question of applying ethical norms to the concrete situation. Kant warns about futility of theoreticians who can never in all their lives become practical, since they lack judgment. They are, for example, doctors or lawyers who did not well during their schooling, but who do not know how to act when asked to give advice, counseling. If you go to doctor, to the physicians, you need counseling advice, you need to treat. And that's the reason that you go to the doctor. He needs to help you. And it's a good example that Kant say we have ethical rules, ethical norms, which we have to apply in practice. Kant wants to explicitly emphasize that the validity of the theory and norms is verified and confirmed through its application in practice. He explicitly points out that he has confidence in theory when it starts from the legal principle of relation between man and states as they should be. Yeah, that's concrete. Respecting rights and duties open up the possibility for moral and practicalism to finally achieve victory after many successful attempts insofar as it relies on capacity of judgment. In this regard, Kant claims that what is true for theory from the reason of the mind is also true of practice. We judge the relationships between theory and practice, as Kant explicitly stated, in three significant segments: in the context of morality, with respect to the well-being of all of the individuals; in the context of politics, with regard to the welfare of states and its citizens; and finally, with regard of the ultimate good of humanity in cosmopolitan intent. That's very important. Humankind and human species have to have intention look for the highest humanity, highest good, ultimate good. In the preface to the Critique of Judgment, Kant explains that the ability to judge our orchestra provides the link between practical and theoretical reason, and that philosophical judgment of our life world is motivated by the cultivation of our mind. Kant's concept of subjectivity can serve thereby as a good basis for establishing intersubjective consensus in democratic form of life. We discussed this just on our conferences in Vienna. Hannah Arendt, in his lecture of Kant's political philosophy, tried to analyze and explain on the theme of Kant's third critique in the context of his political philosophy. Kant's idea of our capacity to distinguish between the beautiful and the ugly was applied by Hannah Arendt to the moral task of distinguishing between what is true and false, good and evil for our society. This question of exploring, analyzing, and cultivated judgment in concrete case in our society. Philosophers who invoke Kant models of respect for human dignity are involved. Working, Robert, Alexei, my professor Wolfgang, Wieland from Freiburg, Robert Spemann, because it represents an intrinsic value that cannot be masked, not be monetized under any circumstances. No, the idea of human dignity depends heavily on the application of law and practice. It is its interpretation according to the principle that every citizen has the right for equal treatments, and application of law. That's Watkins' sentence. Watkins explicitly emphasized that Kant notions of human dignity, according to which every person should be treated equally and with dignity before the law, is basis prerequisite for the functioning of democracy and legislation. The risk of monetization of human dignity exists especially in the field of medical therapy and treatment of patients. Many sophisticated medical treatments and operations depends on money, and often poor people cannot afford such luxury. Human dignity is put to the test in such cases. The equality of human beings, unfortunately, remains a mere letter in the proclamation of the law. It should be the primary responsibility of the states to provide its citizens with a good health care so that medical treatment and preventive care are available to all equally, including those who cannot pay. In considering the care of human health to be a particularly important segment of, I consider the care of human health to be particularly important segment of ethical responsibility for our lives and our society. English ethicist Bernard Williams has argued that the real ethical test of modern democracy is the state's concern for the health of its citizens. If citizens of the state cannot be treated and cured in the hospital because they can't pay for it, the dignity of the person is often there. It's tricky. The danger. The actual primacy of deontological morality is developed by Kant, which advocates a ban on the instrumentalization of men. I consider the best form of morality in the time of crisis and imminent danger at the global levels. In the time when our earth as whole remains threatened, we need a more responsibility for the preservation of our living world. We cannot achieve this with utilitarian morality because it strives for utility as principle. The primary task of ethics, in my opinion, in the age of globalization, is to promote and foster uniform universal responsibility in pluralism of differences in the terms of belonging to different cultures and forms of life, with the additional goals of contributing to preservation and development of these cultures and forms of life. This pluralism of differences does not mean that the prevailing tendency toward rationalizing uniformity should be replaced by cultural and moral relativism. Kantian deontological morality has no alternative when it's come to respect for human dignity and responsibility for our living world. Nietzsche warned us that we remain faithful to the earth, like the elder Prof, in the sense that we have forget our earth when we take refuge in religion. Philosophical reflection, in other words, if it's going to remain a relevant approach to our technological society, ought to be incorporated products and achievements of modern technology as an integral part of our concept of our life world. Our everyday being in the world would be unthinkable without the sophisticated product of technology familiar to us today, from the cell phone to the World Web and cloud computing. Our continent life depends heavily on the complex management of trade and shipping, above all the subtlety and distribution of basic necessity, as well as on the help of advanced medicine and pharmacy. Many diseases from the rich people died 30 years ago are generally curable today due to the rapid development of medicine and technology. This is particularly important for the world of technology, which is to be analyzed in all its diversity. Development of most modern equipment also implies the ability to understand it, especially in its practical use. Modern technology has enriched our lives in many ways, made life easier, enables us to be satisfied and happy. Insofar as science is not merely some set of mathematical theory, but is embodied as technoscience with materially related to the world, and insofar as the Earth is perceived planet, and then insofar as our measurements are critically reconstructed through instrumentally constitutive praxis, then phenomenologists can detect the possible greenhouse effect. I think it is necessary to apply Kant's notion of reflective judgment, to all that is human and humanities, because according to Kant, in this area, in the area of humanities, there no science, only judgment. However, philosophical reflection does not aim only at an interpretation and explanation of existing comprehensive form of human mind. It also considered the possibility of some new forms of artistic and cultural creation and seeks reflective answer to both the challenges of contemporary age in the complex issue pertaining to modern society. The primary task of philosophical reflection also include the complex understanding and judgment of concrete situations, as well as ways to cope with the issue of application of the universal ethical norms to the particular to our practice. Kant coined the term Gemeinsinn, common sense among experts in the critique of judgment, expressing consensus on the recognition of art, culture, and life, and recognition in the field of science. This intersubjective consensus remains the basis for mutual recognition of importance of preserving our cultures and communication against the imperialism of power, of capital, of superficial communications. The object of ethical reflection, what Aristotle calls phronesis, include neither unchanging and external being, nor supreme and enduring principle, but is directed exclusively to contingent circumstances, or as Aristotle put it, that which may be thus or otherwise. Apart from circumstances in which exceptions are always possible, ethic refers primarily to the human actions which are often unique, non-repeatable, and irrevocable. It is therefore reasonable in the world of action not to strive for perfect exactness and precision, but rather for the prudent consideration and adequate analysis of the states of affairs in its country. critical philosophy in the area of ethics should reflect on rational principles of decision-making and conduct in order to enable us to cultivate it and strengthen our power of judgment and to penetrate it, the complex situation clearer and more completely. The fact that it is not possible to apply generally valid norms to complex states of affairs without limitation does not justify anybody in discounting universal norms of action and concepts of normative standardization as obsolete. These are norms of human cohabitation that largely underlie our everyday practice, that are rationally justified, generally acceptable, and verifiable through experience in most cases. As critically reviewed and rationally justified norms, they are an integral part of our ethical life world. My references: Nicholas Zadar, Jure Human Enhancement, Boston Sawulescu Human Enhancement, Kant, Beantwortet Frage, was ist Aufklärung, Lacey, is science very free, and my papers, what is specific moral judgment and bioethics, and my paper, Kant's on judgment and moral actions. Thank you, dear friends, for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Jure Zovko, for your excellent talk. Now, it's turn of Professor Liu Xiaofei for comments and questioning. Okay.
Thank you, Professor Zhengbo, and thank you, Professor Zovko, for this very rich talk. I've learned a lot. So basically, I have just 3 clarification questions. So the first question is, could you say a little bit more about human dignity? So respecting human dignity seems to be a starting point in your talk for dealing with all the challenges that we face from development of science and technology. So I wonder if you could say a little bit more about what it means by human dignity in Kant. So one of the standings that the impressions that I got is that respecting human dignity seems to imply that you respecting human beings as rational beings who are capable of setting goals, setting ends, and setting rules for themselves, right? This is one sort of understanding. Or it could be understood as you need to respect human as their nature defines them to be. Now, so this is related to my next question. You give a criticism to the practice of genetic engineering, the development of genetic engineering on the basis of respecting human dignity. Now, if we take the first understanding of human dignity, that is, rational being being able to set goals for themselves, then it seems to me there is no fundamental problem for genetic engineering, because that's exactly how we sort of set goals for ourselves and etc. But if we take the second understanding, that is respecting human nature as they are, that then I could understand why there's a problem for genetic engineering. So you mentioned several strings of objections to this line of resistance to genetic engineering. Here I just wonder, I'll mention one particular objection by Alan Buchanan in defense of genetic engineering against the charge of that is violating human dignity. I wonder how you're going to respond to this type of defense. So Alan Buchanan, his defense in essence is that, look, humans have enhanced and changed their nature by all sorts of means. For example, the human nature is such that we are susceptible to fallacious thinking. For example, we are susceptible to the fallacy of appealing to authority or appealing to emotions. We are susceptible to the gambler's fallacy, that sort of thing. So, and it is precisely philosophers' job to sort of correct us from such natural tendencies. And so, talking about engineering or talking about enhancement, we have been enhanced by human intervention, such as philosophy, for 2,000 years. So, what's in principle so objectionable about using biological means to change that? So that seems to be, as insofar as I understand it, Buchanan's one of his main defense for genetic engineering. So I just wonder how you think about this. So that's my second question. And my third question is you suggested that you think the counting approach, rather than the utilitarian approach, is a better way to for handling for dealing with the sort of situations that we face nowadays, including the challenges and threats by the unconstrained developments of science and technology. In the end, you mentioned something about Kant's view in the third critique, which I find very interesting. So Kant started with the well-being of individuals, and then he moves on to the cosmopolitan intent. Now that move seems to me a very interesting one, because that sounds very much like the greatest happiness for the greatest people, that sort of idea. Now, insofar as I understand, I think utilitarian, one of the main strengths of utilitarianism is that it gives us a tool for dealing with competing duties or competing rules, or giving us a way to solve conflict when there are two rules competing with each other and in contradiction. And that is often taken to be a weakness of the Kantian ethics. It seems that sometimes we don't always have a way to get out of the conflict. So I just wonder, given that you have emphasized the plurality of values, respecting the sort of value judgments from different cultures, the diversity of this world, and so why do you think that the Kantian picture is a better solution for this sort of diversity when we try to arrive at perhaps a compromise or convergence than the consequentialist or utilitarian framework? So that's my question. Thank you.
Great. Great question. Thanks to you. It's not easy to answer because it's a lot of discussion about that. We need the whole year to discuss these three questions because it's substantial. First, human dignity. All critics of Kant thinks that is abstract formulation and etc. But if you have that in the law, like in Germany, there was long discussion in Germany after the Second World War. This crime, Auschwitz and all killing of millions of people, German responsibility. How was possible that German people who traditionally have this qualification of as people of philosopher and people of poets could make a concentration for killing people, Auschwitz. And this discussion led to the constitution, first constitution of German law about human dignity. Human dignity is our anything, is no. And I think the Kant, if you try to explain where is our dignity is just in the regarding of our respect for the other people, regarding our recognition for the other people, because they are people. We could have friends because they have money, but we could have solidarity with the people who don't have to eat and to give them money. And this respect, ability to have solidarity, the sense for justice, the sense for equality by law. And Kant's idea is just because we are free, we decide to be moral. We decide to cooperate with each other. That's a great idea, for my opinion. And just regarding the universal ethics, if I want to keep the earth, our plant world, our society, we have to develop sense for ecology, ecological responsibility. We have too much plastic. We have too much dirty, all this product, unnecessary product. We have too much consumerism, etc. And the question how to use our sense for dignity that you can't buy the friends. I can't buy friends. I have the friends. And Shembo is my friend. And if you are friends, there's no money, there's no price. You can't put it and compare and find something equivalent. And that's just regarding the human dignity, can try to explore this ability for freedom that you could be poet, that you be composer in the art, that you could develop excellent theories. But you should combine always with this ability as human being. The question is just, if I compare this moral with utilitarian. In utilitarian moral, example for utilitarian moral, you have American society where 2% of people have maybe almost 90% of American capital, of American money. We could ask, is it fair that 2% people have 90% of American capital? Okay, we have 80% of people who live normally. They have their credits, they have 2 cars, they goes, you live in the States, you know what's normal American. And you have 80% of people who have nothing. If I ask you who takes care, who does take the care about black people in Washington, Afro-American? Nobody. You have freedom to be criminal. There's no social securities. There are no health security. If you're sick in the States, you have to die. Of course, when you are young and you have prosperity and all that, but if you have, in Germany, you have social democratic approach. And that's the reason just for why John Rawls criticized utilitarians. And I quoted Tugendhat, Tugendhat is billionaire, the son of Jewish capitalists. But he criticized from moral point of view the utilitarian approach. Why? What Marx says, you build always the clique, the group, and you have morality of group. You have the morality among thieves in utilitarian approach. Nobody takes care for the people who have nothing. And I think this necessary social responsibility, that you need social security, that you need social health, etc. And just regarding the responsibility for our life role, I can't find in utilitarian approach the moral sense for responsibility of our life role. Yeah. And in this sense, with criticism that I preferred continental approach. Yeah, the problem, I don't like this division between continental and analytical philosophy, continental morality and utilitarian morality. I would say, general says, it's better to have, it doesn't matter which moral. It's better to be utilitarian than immoralist, and then moral relativism, regarding it's not necessary to be moral. And so I think it's necessary, it's our obligation to be moral, because it's question which determines us as human being. And now it's question to a second, what I should say to a second question. Human nature, could we improve our human nature? Of course, I have glasses that I could see better, and it's improvement of my seeing ability. And I'm for this enhancement, and the enhancement which don't describe. I'm for amending of human being, but the question is, where is the border? Where are the limits of our enhancements? And I would say I'm for selective enhancement, but not for radical enhancement of improving our ability. I'm for looking if we could solve the problem of Down syndrome with genetic research. I would prefer to research that, but I'm not sure it is possible. And this question, okay, I would not forbid, but I would be very careful regarding, and I now plead for the ethical norm in this sense for deontological morality, because it's better form of morality. It's universal norms which we could apply universal, because the question that we all equal by the law in the society, whether we have money or not. And of course, if you have money, you could pay a lawyer, and you have maybe some better advantage to be free in comparison to people who don't have money. And that's a question of ethical question, and just regarding the dangers in our society, development, etc. I think the best morality is Kantian form of morality. For example, if you compare the question, should we lie or not? Could we lying use as a universal law? If you come to the work tomorrow and everybody likes you, could you live in the world where everybody likes? Of course, you could try, there's the truth behind the lying. Sometimes you have propaganda in the totalitarian systems, but the people try to find what is really the truth behind this propaganda, etc. And just, okay, I have sympathy, great sympathy with Socrates and his morality, but I think I would say that's universal morality for myself. How to be happy, that's good morality. But if you have morality for society, morality for social responsibility, that's Kantian model of morality. That's the reason that I prefer morality with respect for the human dignity, because every person needs respect. Regardless of color number, tradition, in China you have so different tradition of people, different tradition of culture. But you respect all each other because you are all group who belongs and build modern China's society. And that's respect for diversities with moral dignities, that everybody as person have moral dignity, of course, different cultural background. That's the reason that I plead for diversity in the field of freedom and decision, etc. I'm a fan of Bayern Munich and Dinamo Zagreb. They both play Champions League, and other people prefer Barcelona, Real Madrid, etc. And of course, when we won against Chelsea, my team in Croatia, I have sympathy for Dinamo Zagreb. Okay, I'm involved from Dinamo Zagreb, but we won against Chelsea. They have hundreds of millions in the budget, and we have not hundreds millions in the budget, but we play all the same soccer, football, and of course that's a question of fair playing, and sometimes it's not fair because they have more money than we have, but it's question the rules of playing of soccer are all for the same. And of course, the problem with ethics is not easy to talk on ethical question. And I try to introduce in the field of ethics this moral judgment. That's Kant achievement. I try to improve Kantian achievement as ethical orientation. And I combine it with Aristotelian phronesis because it's from how to find the practical wisdom in our life. But the practical wisdom need moral orientation regarding of our responsibility for our lives, for our life world, and for our society. And that reason, of course, if you ask me, is it better to be utilitarian representative of utilitarian morality or lack of moral sense? I would say it's better to be utilitarian morality than to have lack of moral sense. But how to improve sense of morality, how to cultivate it ourselves to be moral, I think that's important for our academic life, for our university, for our academic communities, and of course, for our state. In Croatia, we have small states, 4 million people, and of course, in China, we have billions and billions. Yeah. And that's big differences, of course, but I have respect for every state. It doesn't matter its power of the states or not. We have some cultural contribution, and we are small states in the European Union, and of course, sometimes not easy to that the people listen your voice, but if you organize conferences that people have understanding, respect, and the big states could have respect for the small. And of course, well, famous people, in some sense, I'm also famous, but I like to drink with normal people, with students on the conferences at university, to spend the time. This question of respect for human beings. And that's the reason that I have sympathy for Kantian philosophy. Of course, we could combine Schopenhauer's morality and other religious morality, Christian morality. But okay, my parents are Christians, but I'm not Christians. I am humanist. And my religion is humanist.
Okay, thanks a lot.
I don't know that I persuade you. That's not easy to persuade.
Yeah, they're complicated questions, as you said.
It's very complicated, of course, but it's interesting for me what you understand among ethical empirism. It would be very interesting for me because I try to just consider the judgment in ethics because you have something at some like experiments in ethics and looking for the better options. And of course, if you look for the better options, we could start with utilitarian moralities. But the problem is if you exclude somebody as partner from the group to achieve the goal, that's the question then, a question of morality. Do you have right to eliminate some human dignity regarding the solve some problem? That's it. It's, of course, you're right, this very complicated issue, but moral is, I think, very complicated issue, ethics also, but we need ethics, we need to not argue regarding morality and just in the discussion. Should we teach people in the school religion or morality? I plead for morality.
I agree on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I shall leave time for to read their questions. Thanks, Professor Zovko.
If no other question, maybe Liu Xiaofei, you can have some follow-up questions. Later on, if there is no question from audience, so maybe you can have some follow-up question.
Maybe I'll put this, sorry, I should put my text today.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
that's so better, yeah.
Liu Xiaofei, you can more that.
No, okay.
Put forward more questions.
I think
There's no questions from the audience.
Yeah.
You can discuss something.
Sometimes in life, if I ask, would you prefer to be moral or not moral?
Well,
what should you, Professor Leo, answer? For example, regarding the question, what would you prefer, to be moral or not moral?
Well, I would prefer to be moral, right?
For example, your argument to be moral would be which? Makes you happy.
Well, there are different ways. So there are different ways for answering why be moral, right? I'm a bit sort of a pluralistic in that sense. I think being moral, the motivation for morality comes in many forms. I agree, right? It could come from our general sympathy towards other human beings. So that's human's view. It could.
Would you say sympathy or It's something else.
Sympathy or compassion.
Yeah, okay. Sympathy could be one argument.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's
one
perhaps
segment,
a very strong source of morality. I do agree with Kant that, or with contractualists that, or in general, with the moral, the idea behind the golden rule, that is, do not do to others what you do not then want them do to you.
I think that's has long tradition, yeah, of course.
I see the appeal of that.
Some in China's tradition you have that, in Christian tradition the people have, and the golden rule is a good basis for dialogues between, for example, relation between nations, communication, because it has long tradition in our cultural tradition, and that's one expression regarding the morality, the golden rule. But,
right. So yes, when Kant it illustrates his categorical imperative, his universal law test, with talking about golden rule. I think that's very, very persuasive in that sense.
Yeah, of course, it's practical. You can justify it, but just regarding the lying, prepare for the telling the truth. If your life is not written, and that's I would say that's good argument for Kant, because it's necessary. The truth is very important in our life, and to be truthful and just. And the other segment, of course, is responsibility, I would say, because Tugendhat's argument is that's more nicer to live in the communication with the people who are moral than with the people who are immoralist. And of course, would you have the friend for somebody who has a lack of moral sense?
Well, I haven't, fortunately. Right. Yes. Go ahead.
In the same sense, it has some, I would say, some feature of utilitarianism, every moral. We can find in Plato and Socrates some forms of utilitarian segments. But I think utilitarian approach, the positive of utilitarian approach is that you could verify its options in the practice, we analyze which option should be the best. And so that's, but the problem regarding, just regarding the solidarity with other people, solidarity with society, and in the society, I'm not sure that we could derive it from utilitarian morality. Some people try to do that, but the problem is, for example, just regarding the euthanasia, for example, could we apply that or not? And I think anti-morality is in this case the best. Try to keep human dignity because it's person, because it's human being, and to give them the chance. And that's, of course, it's question whether a life under apparatus is a life. Is it a part of living? That's another question. And it's very complicated. But just in the field of enhancement, I think we open some problematical issue. It could be dangerous for our society and for human beings.
Well, I agree.
Yeah, and in this sense, it's necessary to recur to take this the basis for argument in Kantian morality. That's good morality because, of course, it could more explore what does mean, what you're asking, what does mean human dignity, because we are people. A human being is a being with the freedom, ability for judging, analyzing, ability for obligation, the acceptance of the law, the truth to law, recognition regarding the laws, common recognition, and now that's respect for the others. And that's what I would also subsume under a concept of human dignity that is not abstract.
So we're talking about that. So on a different note, I wonder what do you think about artificial intelligence? That the prospects of it replacing human neighbor, making us permanently out of jobs or certain types of jobs. So
that's a very complicated question. But for example, if I would ask you, would you delegate it on artificial intelligence the question of using atom weapon?
say it again. Excuse me.
Would you delegate it? Decision of using atom weapon on artificial intelligence?
Using what?
Nuclear weapon.
Oh, nuclear weapons. Okay.
Yeah, nuclear weapon. Yeah. Would you delegate that? Of course not. But maybe, yeah, of course. I'm not against artificial intelligence. I will support it. But the question is, decision at the end is human. Human being is who programmed it, who has responsibility, who has the other view, all that. And okay, this difficult question how to, which form of implementation of artificial intelligence is possible in our society. For example, I plead for robotic surgery because it's better. You could better make surgery with robotics than without it, and that's.
Well, regarding the nuclear weapon decision question, now depending on how the AI is set up, right? So if the AI strictly follows the rule of avoiding mutual destruction, then that seems to me maybe more reliable than human judgment.
Its possibility is zero.
Take chances. Right. So
the same question could be if you play chess against computer. Did you play chess against computer? Because and maybe one day human brain, human mind will develop a chess model which is better of human being. But I'm not sure. You could find maybe again Chinese who will be better than computer. Like in the soccer, we could analyze people who play great soccer. For example, Luka Modric. I like Luka Modric because he has unbelievable move in the soccer. You can never prognose. You can never predict it.
Right.
And that's the beauty of human being, unpredictable. For example, that's
right. In a novel scenario which is filled with unpredictability, then maybe we trust human judgment more than AI. In a scenario where you have predicted results and inputs, and in that case, I guess a lot of people might prefer AI to make decisions because humans sometimes make mistakes or misjudge.
Right. Of course, that's but how to avoid mistakes and false judgment is one of philosophical questions. And just in the but Turing has said, okay, if I make something wrong and philosophical conclusion, what's happened? Almost wrong syllogism, almost nothing. In aesthetic, when I make something wrong, okay, we could destroy the building, etc. But if I make the ethical sense, something wrong decision. It could have bad consequences, just like Holocaust and etc.
Right, yes. Especially in the cases of...
ethics is very important, maybe the most important philosophical discipline. Okay. Chen would say the logic is most important, yeah. I would say the improving of our judgment is the most important. Yeah, that's my position philosophically. But the one ethics would say the ethics is the most important because it is question how to improve our life, how to make our life happy and good, and how to give him sense and all that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's not good to totally agree, but it's good to agree.
Okay. I suggest we stop here. I say few words. In his talk, Professor Jure puts forward a serious question to us: how to morally and viably live in this complicated world with human dignity. This world right now is not so good, full of many problems, dangers, disasters. For example, disease, pandemic, climate, disaster, very hard, very bloody, and also environmental crisis, war, nuclear danger, and poverty, hunger, inequality, something like that. So, and also destruction of globalization, segregations, something like that. So, this world right now have many different and serious questions, problems, disasters, dangers. How to morally live in this world with human dignity. This is a serious question for us. We have to think. We have to make choice. We have to make our decision. So in this sense, Professor Jure talk is very stimulating. Thank you very much for your rich, informative, deep, and stimulating talks, Professor Jure. Okay? Then, thank you also. Thanks to Professor Liu Xiaofei, his efficient discussion with Professor Jure. So, and thanks every friend and every colleagues to join these two lectures by Professor Jure. So we stop here. Maybe someday we will meet together offline at Wuhan University. Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Professor Zovko.
Thank you, my friend Chen. Thank you, Liu.
Yes.
Xiaofei,
Okay.
for your
Then, bye-bye.
Bye. It was great pleasure for me. Bye.
See you. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Bye. Bye. Thanks.